And a lot of people are looking at it potentially as a co-pilot, as you mentioned there, taking away some of the menial tasks, allowing people to sort of focus on the higher level aspects of their jobs. What about the difference between, in terms of the timeline, the skills that they currently have and what the learning curve is going to look like to really stay with the jobs of the future or even keep their current jobs?
Yeah, I think with any of these transformations, if your timeline is long enough, then industries and professions adapt very, very well. I think at the turn of the previous century, we had many millions of people working on the land, and now it's a fraction of that. The question though is what happens in the intervening period, and I do think there's going to be a need, and this certainly comes through our research. There's going to be a need for professionals to adapt. They're going to have to become much more tech savvy, open-minded about using AI, learning how to use AI, and maybe most importantly, learning how to use it responsibly, and then morph their skill sets more to the value added to the advisory services rather than the repetitive task. So professionals and the professional services firms are going to have to go on that journey. And I think there will be a level of disruption, but ultimately the picture we think, and we agree with the research, is one of great optimism.
And something that we're seeing is some of the changes in the roles themselves. Like, will you still need a professional degree for some of these professions, and also new career paths opening up? How should people be viewing this, and employers as well, especially when you think of, we're not even sure how this is going to be regulated. There seems to be a preference for the professions themselves regulating this versus governments. How do you see that aspect playing out?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of, I think every sort of aspect of the profession will be impacted here. So the professionals themselves, which we've been talking about, I think the schools and the graduate schools, getting people ready for professions, curriculum will have to be rewritten. The sort of the types of skills that are taught will need to be looked at, and then both professional bodies and regulators are going to have to be active over the next few years. So, for an example, whether it's the professional bodies themselves or whether it's the government, the regulator, tasks that are performed by machines need to be clearly labelled, in our view. So it's important that when a legal task, when a legal document or a tax return is performed purely by a machine versus by a certified professional, that needs to be labelled. The consumers of that information need to understand that, firstly. Secondly, I think professions need to step up and say, look, machines cannot take on the roles and responsibilities, the obligations of our profession. That, in other words, a human being needs to be in that process. And so these are some of the things that regulators and professional bodies are going to need to come to terms with. And of course, the technology is moving very quickly. So that process needs to be accelerated in order for responsible AI to be put in place across industries, because the research suggested that professionals have real concerns around AI's accuracy. So 25% said, "How do I know whether the results are accurate?" 15% are worried about data security. Will my client proprietary information get leaked into a large language model and therefore sort of end up in the out in the wild? And then 15% talked about ethics. Will bad actors get hold of these models and in some way, shape, or form pervert the profession and the work products that are coming out of that profession? So all of these things are going to need to be lined up over the next 12, 24, 36 months. And there's a lot of work to do.